we need to talk about the Dylan Burns family, okay? Because I got exposed today. I got exposed for my trip to Ukraine. It was only a matter of time. I mean, how could someone like me be doing this? I mean, I'm just a lowly Twitch streamer. It doesn't really make much sense that I was able to go all the way across the world, cross the border from Poland into Ukraine, and then get high-level access to the front lines of a major European war. The war on the news, better access than many mainstream news outlets gets. That doesn't make much sense. What did Dylan do? How did Dylan get this access? Who does Dylan know? How could Dylan possibly have pulled this off? All these questions and more will be revealed eventually when I release the full documentary, but I feel like I'm speaking like Tucker Carlson right now. Oh my goodness. All of this will be revealed eventually when I release the full documentary on how exactly I got frontline access to this war and how it's not even over yet. But others have a theory. Others who are whistleblowers speaking up against me. And I'm proud of them for taking this stand and, really digging deep to expose me. So a few people know I'm in Ukraine, and they're not very happy about it. Either they're not happy about it because they don't like me personally. They're not happy about it because I support Ukraine and they support the Russian invasion and all of the disgusting things that come with it. They're not happy about it because of any number of reasons. But they're not happy. Or or some other thing. They're not happy that I'm in Ukraine doing what I'm doing, right? And whatever, I could respond to any number of reasons why I think that my trip is completely appropriate or why I support Ukraine, and I've talked about that at length before. But a new theory has emerged about how specifically I got this access. And so I wanted to talk about it. So this post was made about, 5 days ago. See if I can bring it up on screen now. Is this it? Oh, yes. This post was made. I posted on my YouTube channel that I got some crazy level of access along the front lines of the Zaporozhye Oblast in Ukraine. I went with troops to the front line, to anti-armor training, and got to have a lot of great interviews with those defending Ukraine. Those people are determined to defend their homes. Very milquetoast. I don't really give a lot of information. All I say is that I went to the front line in Zaporozhye. I went to some anti-armor training exercises and interviewed some people. Nobody's seen the footage. At least you guys haven't seen the footage. A select few have. Mr. Geek, my editors, Lanuski, of course the crew that was with me. Nobody else knows exactly how in-depth or what exactly happened there. Besides my descriptions on yesterday's stream. But some people, jumped to some conclusions. This guy, of course, not very happy with me, says Dylan Burns is going to create a Breadtube unit in the Azov battalion. They start going off in the comments, etc., etc., etc. You can expect it. There's some people wishing that it get blown up by a rocket. There's some people just saying, oh, that's disgusting, Dylan's producing propaganda, etc., etc. I do want to highlight one before we get into the theory, though, that is a personal favorite of mine, and that's this one. I don't know much about this dude, and he seems a little annoying. But I am insanely jealous of his hair, not gonna lie. Me appreciating the sheer level of honesty from Dawn here, another streamer, responded, the key is microfiber towels. That is my advice to everyone else at home. But a new theory has emerged as to how I did this. From Seamus Connolly. He interned at the media wing of the CIA, the Council of Foreign Relations. He has since the age of 16 appeared online on a Who's Who's as a foreign policy expert, so it is no wonder that his granduncle was the director of the CIA, and his whole family worked for three-letter agencies. He's a born and bred Fed. So let me say, when I read this comment, I was mostly just confused. Because there's not like a shred of honesty in anything he said here. Number one, I never interned for the Council for Foreign Relations. I'd love to intern for the Council of Foreign Relations and come with a lot of great experience, but I haven't. So if anybody at the Council for Foreign Relations is watching, how you doing? But at the age of 16, I started appearing as a foreign policy expert. No, it was when I was 18. At the age of 16, I was, I don't know, in 10th grade, I think. A year after that, at 17, I started working as a page in the Maryland General Assembly. So no, I wasn't doing any foreign policy stuff at the time, besides like following the Syrian civil war on a personal level. I never called myself a foreign policy expert. I never appeared as a foreign policy expert. I never claimed to be one. So I don't know where that comes from. And this is, of course, the claim that tickled me the most. It is no wonder that his granduncle is the director of the CIA and his family works for 3-letter agencies. Which granduncle is he even referring to? Nobody in my family works for the CIA that I know of. Maybe some distant cousin that I'm unaware of, but nobody in my immediate family, at least. Certainly not my granduncle. And if they do work in the CIA, and I'm unaware of it, they're certainly not the director of the CIA. So that confuses me. As for my whole family working for 3-letter agencies, my grandmother was a chef for the FDA. Maybe that is like the closest I could think of. But I don't think he's talking about the notorious Burns family reputation of cooking food and being a food researcher. I don't think there's any notoriety that comes with that. My grandfather was a machinist for, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. He made machines that printed money. So I don't know, maybe you can pin inflation on my grandfather. That's an option, maybe. He was he worked in steel factories in Ohio. He fought in Vietnam. My mother didn't work for the government, that's for sure. And my father certainly didn't work for the government. He was usually on the other end of the law when it comes to the government. So anyway, what I'm saying is this comment was extremely confusing. And so I kind of just dismissed it. But this comment was grabbed by others. The narrative would change a little bit about who exactly in my family was the CIA director, but it was grabbed and people ran with it. A few people, Gorbash, thank you so much. Even a few people in Germany, a few people ran with this. And let me just show you a few of the examples of people running with this theory. Really running with this theory. Look at this, by the way. Can I first show you the proof that they provided before we move on to people running with the theory? In fact, the original poster ran with the theory. Got any links for this? Super curious, mate. He provides a link and they respond, thanks for finding this. I had a load of stuff on this before myself. So do you guys want to see the proof that underpins all of this? The proof that my granduncle works for the CIA as the director, as in he's in charge for the CIA. That's what HW, senior. I'm talking about the senior Bush. That's what his job was. This is a senior important position. Congratulations to Bill Burns on his Senate confirmation as the CIA director. And I responded, the Burns family is taking over. So, I just want to be straight up with you guys. The lack of social awareness here is stunning. In fact, I find it beautiful. It's fantastic. You could do social experiments on the level that these people don't have social awareness of what I was saying here. First off, it was a joke. He is not a member of my family. Burns is a pretty common Irish surname. The only relation I could possibly have to Bill Burns, besides having the same last name, is that we're probably both have Irish heritage. He is not a member of my family. This was a joke. Burns is just a common Irish surname, and I was just poking fun at the fact that Mr. Burns, and I'm Dylan Burns, is the head of the CIA. I thought it was funny. And so I poked fun at it. That's all it was. But again, I now went to this tweet and I was checking the quote tweets. I was checking some of the replies. And people ran with it. People took this and used it as evidence that Breadtube has been infiltrated by CIA, specifically me, even though I don't really consider myself a part of Breadtube. For one instance, this person, the original poster that was complaining about me being going to Ukraine, he's literally a Fed, laugh my ass off, grandpa. I thought it was my granduncle. Now it's my grandpa. Don't know where the change happened from Bill Burns being my granduncle to my grandpa happened. That's some, I guess, some, what is it? Headcanon changes? What is it? Retcon. It's a retcon. It's a Dylan Burns fanfiction retcon. Grandpa is serving CIA director. Grandson interns at the known CIA think tank Council on Foreign Relations. Again, not true. Always supports American imperialism from a socialist perspective. I don't talk about socialism whatsoever. I don't consider myself a socialist, so that's also not true. Goes to geopolitical hot zones and is somehow given high-level access as a civilian. I mean, okay, that one's true. Don't worry, though. Nothing to see here. Now, there was a few people who, stepped up and was like, maybe I have a question. But it feels like they all just kind of like, they didn't know how to ask for a source without coming off as like, maybe they're working with the feds. They didn't want to look like they were Fed posting like I do constantly. Lol, no way. Is that actually his grandfather or was that a joke? Wondering if this is real also. Regardless, the guy says a lot of Fed shit. The thing that gets me about this whole interaction from like start to finish is that this is all they had. Is that the director for the CIA just has the same common Irish surname as me. That's all they had. But somehow that turned to this person making allegations that I'm working for the media wing of the CIA, the Council for Foreign Relations, and that, by the way, it's not the media wing of the CIA, but whatever. But I worked for the Council for Foreign Relations, and that I've been calling myself a foreign policy expert since age 16, and that my granduncle, which then later turned to my grandfather, is director of the CIA. This person just goes on an Adderall-fueled rant in the replies to this, and that's all it takes for other people to run with it. There is no source. There's no articles. There's no links. There's no birth certificates. There's no DNA testing connecting me to anyone. It's just this. And that's all it took. One person just going on a schizo posting rant on the internet was all it took for them to pick it up and run with it. And I love that. I wish I had that much confidence in my own ramblings, so that any time I saw somebody say anything that might make somebody I don't like look bad, that I just ran with it. I wish that like there was somebody who just went on like a 20-page rant about, I don't know, Lavrov and how he's engaged in like multiple satanic sex orgies, and I could just pick that up and just be like, okay, somebody posted it on Twitter and run with it. I wish I had the confidence and the trust in other human beings to run with it as well. The amount of trust they have here in their fellow man to not lie on Twitter.com is absolutely glorious. I love it, man. I adore it. My goodness. And there was at least one person I could find that was like, Dylan is the son of an alcoholic heroin addict. Gotta say, kind of a harsh way to put it. But I think people, like, it's not a secret, but okay. So I'm guessing that's a long shot, and he's just fishing for this exact kind of response. And I gotta say, didn't get a lot of support this comment. But you know what? Most people rejected his message. They hated Jesus because he told them the truth. They just want to believe it. They just want me to be a Fed. They want me to be CIA. They want me to be a glowy. They want it so bad. They want it. But what confuses me about this idea of like, oh, Dylan's a Fed because he supports Ukraine. Dylan's a Fed because he went to Ukraine. Dylan's a Fed because he interviewed soldiers. Like, not only other media outlets have done, but other freelance media people have done as well. What gets me about this is my position on Ukraine is the mainstream, most commonly held position. If you poll the majority of Americans, my position on Ukraine is the same position as the majority of Democrats and Republicans and independents have. My position on Ukraine is the same position the majority of people just straight across the board in the United States have. My position is the same position as the majority of people across Europe have. My position is the position that the majority of people all across the world have. My position is a position that the majority of people within Ukraine have. There's only a few countries where the majority of their population doesn't hold that position. Like Serbia, Hungary possibly. It's a little bit more complicated. Russia, of course. Belarus, it's also complicated because there's been a lot of like kind of partisan-ish activities, and the polling seems to be a lot really against the idea of Belarus getting further involved in the conflict. But because I hold the position of the establishment, quote unquote, therefore, it is Fed or CIA to hold this position, even though it's the position the majority of everyone holds. You could use the same logic for like, the establishment doesn't want you to eat feces in the public square. You're a Fed if you repeat that line of questioning. Like, this is a position that the majority of the people hold. It isn't that surprising that I also hold that position. So I don't understand the conspiratorial nature of it. Like, you could easily just believe Dylan's a dumb kid who got swept up with everybody else in propaganda, and because this is what he believes, he went to Ukraine in order to cover the story because he supports Ukraine because of the propaganda. You could make that line. I would still say you're wrong, but that's a lot more believable than Dylan's grandfather / granduncle at the same time is the director of the CIA because they have the last surname. And so that's what confuses me. Because I feel like the only way you could believe something like this is if you're in the most isolated, insular communities, and the only people you talk to are people in this isolated, insular community. Because if you showed this evidence to anyone outside of the community, or did that same Adderall-fueled rant to any person walking around, they would look at you like you're insane, and they would call the police department. But because they talk to people all the time in their insular community who believes the same thing they do about Russia, people on the internet who support Ukraine, they're glowies, and you know, maybe they're connected to the CIA in some way. And this was their small little attempt to connect me to the CIA. Pathetic attempt to connect me to the CIA. When I really am working for the FBI. Anyway, I think that's enough of that. Dude, I love it though. I really wish I could talk to these people. I never heard the term glowy. A glowy is somebody who is basically working for the feds, right? But they're not like, hey, look at me, I'm a Fed. They're not like openly showing it. But their behavior is so fetish that they must be like a Fed, or they must be involved with the Fed. You know? That's basically what it is. It'd be like if I went in with, this is like the idea, somebody with like a little anarchist like emoji as their name walking in on twitter.com and saying, by golly gee, we should support Ukraine because we need to, I don't know, blah blah blah, not have people mass murdered. Then they would say, oh, that's glowy behavior, because that's what the feds also believe. I guess like a lot of people just like want to be contrarians for contrarian's sake when it comes to these issues. I really do feel that's the case. That they hate the establishment. Therefore, if the establishment holds a position, we must oppose it. That's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like to me with Ukraine. At least when it comes to people like Paul Joseph Watson or others. You know? It just feels like contrarianism for contrarianism's sake. It's like when Elon Musk, like in one hand, like was extremely helpful to Ukraine by providing them Starlink, and I actually like give Elon Musk a massive thumbs up for that. But then like next week we'll be like saying like, oh, look at all these Ukraine posters. Gotta support the current thing. It just doesn't even make sense to me. It just feels like contrarianism for contrarianism's sake. SBU rising, amen. Dude, and the thing is, I've been pretty open. If the Ukrainian SBU wanted to like be like, hey Dylan, we think you could do something to help Ukraine, of course I would do it. Are you kidding me? Of course I would do it. There's like a Red Army soldier was like approached by or a person in the Soviet Union approached by the CIA. Hey, you want to do something to help defeat Nazi Germany? Of course. What do you mean? The CIA approached me and was like, Dylan, you want to help us defeat the Houthi rebels in Yemen? No, I'm not interested. Oh, Dylan, you want to help us sanction Cuba? No, of course not. Give me my Cuban cigars. But this, of course. Not even a question. Because I'm not a contrarian for contrarian's sake. I believe Ukraine is fighting for the better system of values. I believe that Ukraine has a right to sovereignty. Dylan, you want to help us in Vietnam? No. Would you do cocaine with Zelensky? Yeah, dude, that's the other thing. I don't understand the cocaine stuff. Have you guys seen the picture of Zelensky with cocaine? The fake picture that like the Russian, a lot of Russian media was like circling around. This image, dude. I wish. Unironically, if there's any man on the planet who has a right to snort cocaine, it is Vladimir Zelensky, and I'd do it with him. Okay. If there's anyone in the world who needs that energy boost, who needs that confidence boost, it is Zelensky. And so yes, I would do coke with Zelensky. I don't believe he does coke, so I don't think he would invite me at any time though. He's high functioning. But dude, it's not even like a good edit. That's the thing that gets me about it. And I don't understand like the Russian position of like Ukraine is led by drug-addled Nazis. I understand the Nazi position. It's stupid, but I at least understand a talking point. The drug point. Because this has been a position of Vladimir Putin and Russian state media for a while. The drug point, that confuses me. Where the fuck did that come from? Why are they drug? Why are they drug fueled? Why are they a bunch of drug-addled, drug-addicted leaders? That confuses me. How many lifts do you think Zelensky does? No clue, but he can lift me up. Drugs are a popular scare for the Russian people? Was apparently not scary enough because Russia has a massive drug problem. That's what confuses me, is that Russia like really like wants to portray itself as this kind of like based tradcon awesome society. You know what I mean? Going against this degenerate Ukraine. But I actually think the drug problem in Russia is worse than in Ukraine. Or if it isn't, it still has a massive drug problem in Ukraine. Crocodile, one of the most notorious, disgusting drugs to be born in the 21st century, originated out of Russia. That's not even to talk about the massive alcoholism problem in Russia. Ukraine also has one. I don't know if it's to the same extent, though. That doesn't feel like base tradcon values. Or if they are base tradcon values, then they're only for show. Because I would assume these base values don't mean anything if they don't have a practical effect on like the way your citizens behave, right? Like if I have like, I want to run a society that's very Christian and, you know, pushes away degenerate practices like drug use and heavy drinking. But then you have high percentages of drug use and heavy drinking, then it feels like just being like, I am conservative is not enough to deal with it. The zero tolerance approach of the Russian government towards drugs didn't work. It didn't work in the United States either. But then don't project those internal, personal, domestic failings on the leadership of the country you're invading, as you don't give your own country's drug addicts the proper support they need to get off of drugs, as you actually make certain drugs that are needed to wane off of addiction illegal in the Russian Federation, try to take the cold turkey, zero tolerance approach, which never works. The Taliban are trying the same thing, and of course the United States tried the same thing. Never works. Hell, we're still kind of trying the same thing. Drug war still isn't over. It's a little softer than what it used to be, but it's still pretty going and pretty hard. It's all projection? That's exactly what it is. It's all projection.